when I met you, you were doing X-Files for Topps Comics, the trading card company that had gotten into comics. Now, X-Files wasn't your first work, though. What was your first published work?
Okay, comic book work would be a Judge Dredd one-off 10-page story for the Judge Dredd magazine, written by Alan Grant, which is probably about 2 years previous to when I was doing the X-Files and that kind of stuff. I'm terrible on dates, so
but that's probably about
the precise date.
That's probably about 93, 92, 93.
Like yeah.
What's it like the day that book hits stands? Like, are you pressed up against the glass waiting for them to open?
Well, the funny thing is, because it was the Judge Dredd magazine, it was a magazine in Britain that's available on the newsstand. And I literally did go and hang around W.H. Smith's a bit and just go, well, I drew that.
We're just standing next to the rack as people walk by. See you looking at Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
It's a particularly good issue. What's it like? What's the feeling like when you finally see your work in print?
Oh, it's a great feeling, especially in those days when the first few times, because you've built up this momentum, you've struggled, you've shown your portfolio probably to, as I had for about the last 2 years, just loads and loads of editors sent stuff off. Rejection letter after rejection letter, the old cliches, and to finally get somewhere and to have it published, and you think, right, that's it, I'm finally on the road now. And to see it in print, it was quite, that first time was quite magical.
Do you still get anything close to that feeling now, 20 years later?
Not really, no. Well,
it's just old hat now.
It is. I'll tell you what's weird is the fact that where I live, in Shrewsbury, in Shropshire, in the UK, folks.
He's British.
Yeah, you might have gathered that. I'm putting this accent on, obviously. I'm from the Bronx, really. But I kind of feel slightly divorced from it all, because I'm there in my house, just in a very rural part of England, in a very sort of normal suburban area. Looking out of my studio window, there's just a field. It's all those sort of things. It's not like I'm watching. Well, I'm sure no one is actually, even if they live in the States. But I'm just not getting that sense of how, well, especially with The Walking Dead, how massive it's become, and I think that sense has always stuck with me, even before I was doing The Walking Dead. Anything that was published, it was just this kind of weird cut-off between me and what's going on in the States, because obviously most of my work has been for the States, and therefore that's something 3,000-4,000 miles away across the Atlantic Ocean, and I just don't have that kind of connection there.
So you're creating in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
a good way of describing it.
Yeah, and then your connection to it is things like, we're here in New York, is conventions.
Yeah.
And I know you love conventions. Well, we met.
No, I obviously, if I didn't like conventions, I mean, I might moan about them as I was just now. But if I didn't get something out of them, I just wouldn't do them. Yeah. I mean, I've got the choice. I don't have to come here.
Well,
no one's twisting my arm.
Yeah, you're kind of sitting in the catbird seat now. The Walking Dead is, I think the Diamond sales numbers are somewhere around 75,000 a month, which is, the best independent comic, the best comic outside of Marvel and DC every month. At that point, it has to be you're in the position to say yes or no to whatever you want. Did you ever?
You are correct.
I'm lucky you said yes to this then. I mean, when you're drawing 10 pages of Judge Dredd, do you ever think to yourself, at some point, I'm going to be that from here to here? Where did you see, at that point, where did you see your career going?
Well, right at the beginning, I was just happy to be drawing and earning a living.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been lucky because all my life, ever since that Judge Dredd strip, I have made a living out of doing comic books for the last 20 years.
Right.
But yeah, there's been highs and lows, definitely. Obviously now is a particular high. The X-Files, when I was doing the X-Files, financially was a high.
Right.
I've also had lows, obviously the beginning of my career, leading up to the X-Files, and especially after the X-Files was a very big drop for me. But I kept going, and even in, shall we say, the lowest of times, I had to sort of keep saying to myself, look, what else would you rather be doing? Nothing. I can't do anything else. So so long as I can keep doing that on whatever level, I've got to be thankful for and happy for. Obviously, I've got to a stage now. Like, yes, you're right. I mean, it's no secret. The Walking Dead has made a lot of money, and therefore, Robert and I have certainly benefited from that, and I can do whatever I want now. Outside of The Walking Dead, obviously, I'm still committed to The Walking Dead. So, the irony of it at the moment is that instead of stepping back and enjoying the fruits of our labour and just rolling naked around in millions and millions of dollars, cackling maniacally to ourselves, we've upped the ante and doing even more. So.
Right.
It's a slight frustration of mine that I can't actually physically do what I want to do because I'm doing the Walking Dead.
Trapped by your own success.
Yes, hoisted by my own petard.
So after the X-Files stops, after Tops goes the way of the dodo, you have a lean period.
Yes.
How do you come by the job of penciling The Walking Dead?
These things are always incredibly circuitous. It's just a bunch of happy accidents, more than anything. I spent about 2 or 3 years, shall we say, my lean period, just going between jobs as some sort of journeyman artist between Marvel and DC. And going back to 2000 AD, doing a lot of stuff there. Right. Keeping my head above water, but never got the big gig. So it was always a bit of a struggle going from the next project to the next project. And in those times between finishing the X-Files and The Walking Dead, I was meeting loads of people. One guy I did meet. Was the writer Joe Casey, who I've become good friends with. And when we did Code Flesh for Image, to cut a long story short, Image did not publish the last 3 parts of the 8 issues that we did.
Okay.
So Joe knew Robert, who at the time was obviously Robert Kirkman, who at the time was running a small publishing company, Funkotron, and Robert stepped in with him knowing Joe and offered to publish the final 3 episodes of Code Flesh. So, like I say, in that roundabout way, I got to know Robert, and I think I met him a couple of times at various San Diegos, and that was it. Probably talked to him no more than 5 or 10 minutes. In total in those times. So
when Kirkman is in need of another artist suddenly...
Yes, he obviously must have kept me in mind in the back of his head for whatever reason. And it's the most, in a lot of ways, it's the most brutally average story you could possibly say. He just emailed me, he caught me in between jobs, I looked at the book, thought looked pretty good. I had nothing else to do at the time, seriously, so I accepted the offer. Simple as that.
And at the time, how long did you think it would last?
Well, there is a funny story with all this, was the fact that literally within a couple of weeks accepting The Walking Dead, I also got an offer from Marvel to do the relaunch of Warlock, written by Greg Pak, who's obviously
Right.
gone on to greater things at Marvel and various
War
other
Hole.
places. Yeah. And so, of course, in my naivety, I remember emailing Robert and Eric Stevenson, the publisher, and said, all right, guys, I've just been offered this big thing at Marvel. What I'll do the 6 issues of The Walking Dead, then go off and do this obviously thing that's going to be huge at Marvel. And, anyway, I got an email back from Robert begging me not to do this. But what actually persuaded me to stay on for The Walking Dead for a bit longer was an email from Eric. Because obviously, as passionate as Robert was, you are thinking, well, obviously you're going to say this because you're the guy that's writing the book. It's your book. You don't want you don't want the hassle of looking for another artist. That's why you're arguing the case against this. Then Eric sort of chimes in with his passionate belief that this book's going to be big, and that's the first time I ever heard someone say that. And so I said, all right then, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try and do both at the same time, which even for me is a tall order.
Yeah.
I think I managed it for about 2 months, and I knew I was falling behind. And it's still in the back of my head, I was thinking, The Walking Dead will still have to go. I still have to go into the big project for Marvel. Then Marvel cancelled Warlock. And I just think even now, I just think, what if?
What if you had actually given up?
If Warlock would have lasted literally 2 more issues or something like that, I would have said, I can't do The Walking Dead anymore.
Wow.
I'd have still chosen that one, just because, it was, I naively was perceiving it as a little independent book, which it was. And I hadn't got my head around the whole creator-owned sort of ideal yet, which now, I'm totally for, and I'm totally sitting on the other side of the fence, and I'm a big advocate for creator-owned comics. And why spend a lifetime working on other people's things when you could be doing your own stuff, etc., etc. But at the time, I needed to, I suppose, I can understand it from another point of view as well. You need to put food on the table, you need to provide, and I had a family by this time, and I did need to provide, and so I was seeing obviously Warlock as the cash cow and The Walking Dead as this kind of just flight of fancy, which obviously wasn't going to take off.
So you've been doing this now for 10 years?
Almost 10 years.
I guess the general rule for the book is everybody dies eventually. Anybody could die.
Yes.
Are there any characters that Robert has killed off that you've said, oh no, I want that character to live, or I'd like to be drawing that character again? Are there any characters that you miss?
There's characters I miss as characters. I mean, it's interesting because, for instance, the death of Glenn. Sorry, spoilers if anyone hasn't read issue 100. But I never really enjoyed drawing Glenn.
Really?
I enjoyed his character, but I just didn't enjoy drawing that. They're quite hard to draw, sort of early 20s, whatever age it was, 19, 20, something like that. That's a tricky age to draw, and I never really got to grips with it. So because of that, it was like, you don't have to draw Glenn anymore.
You were happy to see Glenn die.
I was happy to see Glenn die. Oh, purely on a technical standpoint. So I'm more upset to see people go like Douglas or the older guys who I kind of enjoy drawing because older faces are just more fun to draw and things like that. And so that's on a purely technical sort of standpoint. It's sadder to see those go.
Yeah. And do you watch the show?
I watch this. Yes, of course I do.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Do the differences between the show and the book bother you at all?
No, not at all.
No?
I mean, I really do think that you are stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea with something like this, because you get criticised for not being like the show, but then you'd be criticised if you were exactly like the show, because people would, especially obviously the comic fans would know exactly the beats of the show, and they'd see what's coming, and it's kind of, what's the point of that? What's the point of knowing exactly what's going to happen next episode? I think the show has got it just right. It's sort of, as a visual thing, you imagine the comic does that, linear storytelling, and the show kind of does that around it.
Yeah.
So it keeps hitting the beats of the comic, and then will go off on its own little bit of diversification, then come back. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Can I get one more thing in? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
All right. I just, as I'm saying that we're here in New York, tomorrow I'm going to see my book in print for the first time. So this is, the start of the adventure for me. Give me your best advice. What am I looking at in terms of, the long haul and what's coming, and just off the top of your head, what do I need to know?
Ooh.
Yeah. I know. I'm looking for wisdom here.
In a lot of ways, the biggest battle's won. You've got your book in print, isn't it? The biggest battle is getting into that stage. The next thing now is to hold your kind of reserve, and if you want to go down, the creator route, if you don't want to work for the majors and start writing, I don't know, X-Men or something like that, and sell your soul to the devil. But no, don't get me wrong, and that stuff's fine. That stuff's fine. But loads of people do it. But you do kind of think there's loads of artists out there and writers who that's all they do, and you just think, well, don't they get the desire to do something else?
Yeah.
But I think if you can hold firm and just keep sort of coming up with the ideas, and hopefully one. I mean, it's one of those weird things. I do creative books just because I want to have control over the creation.
Right.
The Hollywood thing, the whatever they do with the property afterwards, that's the icing on the cake. I never go into a project thinking, oh, we could sell this as a film or whatever. I think that's the wrong approach. It's just to do what you want to do and to have your control over your things is the important thing. Whether it gets picked up by somebody else, by another medium, that's a different ball game. But I would never go into a project thinking that was the raison d'etre to getting this stuff out there.
Honestly, thank you for doing this. When I decided to give this a try, I looked down the list of people at the con, and I thought, this is too good an excuse to not give Charlie a ring and see if we can get together.
It's been brilliant. So. It's perfect because we've had a good catch up, and if you'd have come over to me at the con and go, hello, remember me? And oh my God, Anthony, how are you? That would have been pretty much the conversation.
Yeah.
Because the next 4 days are just going to be
insane.
Just stupid.
Yeah.
And there's loads of people here already that I haven't seen for a long time and been in touch. And I feel awful sort of going, oh God, I don't know when I can see you.
Well, damn. Thank you.
My pleasure. That's really good.